Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, let me turn this light on. Did I do the other video without the light on? I'm killing myself. I don't know what's going on. I forgot the light in my last video. Kind of whack. Anyway, I went with the throwback 2005 Astros hat, which is killing my head. Because I don't know how, but I guess it shrunk. It's killing me. It's like extra tight. Like I gotta squeeze it on. Anyways, let me adjust this real quick. Bam. All right. So I have the round 11 game between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura, and because they play like a million games together, I was able to get a joint picture. That might be one. Okay. Yeah. So I think it's a nice little picture there. So like I said, we got the Magnus Carlsen versus Hikaru Nakamura for the Champions Chess Tour, the Skellig opening, or the Skellig Open. Yeah, Skellig opening. That's funny. Let me just show you guys the stand-ins here, and I believe it's over right now. At least the skilling portion is over, but it's a whole tour, so they're gonna be playing like more tours. But this is what you got here. You got Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura in first place. So I figured, it's fitting to go ahead and do a game of the, first and second place, person. And, of course, we got Wesley So in the third spot, tied with Jan Nepomniachtchi and Levon Aronian. So I haven't forgot about Wesley. But yeah, I did that video right before. So getting that out the way. If you guys are ready, let's go ahead and take a look, see what we got. All right, so we have an E4. We have an E5. Bishop C4. So we have the bishops opening, and it's just like how a lot of the the openings go. You might have knight F3, knight C6, and bishop C4. Bishop C4 is probably the most commonly played opening move for white. Whether it's like bishop takes C4 or C4, bishop C4. It just gets the bishop on the most perfect diagonal, and of course we got like the Bobby Fischer. The Bobby Fischer Bishop B3 backup. He played that classic game against Samuel Reshevsky where he sacrificed like everything. All right, so we got knight to F6. Just trying to hit that little tender point on E4. So we got D3 just defending. All right, so we got C6. And C6, the intention is clear. Either you're going to play B5, not that. Either you're going to play B5 or you're going to play D5, trying to knock that bishop back. Obstruct its, its influence on that tender F7 square. So we got knight to F3. All right, we got D5, like I was saying. Bishop back to B3. All right, so we have bishop to B4 check. Bishop D2 covering. Bishop takes D2. Knight B takes D2. With those knights, make sure you put that right one. So knight B takes D2. All right, so we got queen to C7. All right, you got castles. D takes C4. And we have knight to G5. And so so we have castles in the game, but if we just kind of take a look at an alternate variation, you definitely don't really want to go E takes D3, even though you're looking at it like, okay, I'm not going to get checkmated, my king is going to get knocked off, but it's like I grabbed the pawn, because like I said, you'll have bishop takes F7 with check, you'd have king moving over, bishop back to C4, D takes C2, queen takes C2. And as you guys can see, white is completely 100% developed. So, they are down one pawn, but they are super ahead in development. You have this bishop and this knight and this rook that's in the corner that aren't being used. So, right now, white is very ahead. So if they can just maintain that initiative, it's going to be a pretty winning game, especially, because you have F4 coming. And the fact that the king is on the F file, it poses a pretty big problem for black. So this is definitely not something you want to go into as white. And so, like I said, we had castles in that position. So we have knight D takes E4. And 10 moves in, we have a completely new game here. Knight G takes E4 has been played 2 separate times. But knight D takes E4, even though it seems like the most natural move, has not ever been played before. So as familiar as simple and familiar as this position might seem to a lot of you, this is brand new territory, brand new waters. So we have knight to D5, And you know, when I first saw this move, I thought it was kind of strange. For number one, I mean, you're moving the piece a second time in the opening, and it just kind of seems like it doesn't really, you know, defend the king side very well. It's kind of blocking that bishop, but you know, the main problem here is the queen, and so you know, what we had in the game was d4. Just trying to you know, double attack the knight on d4. You know, if we were to take like with you know, pawn takes e5, but you know, something that was actually pretty strong in the position was queen to h5. You know, just exploiting the fact that this knight was moved a second time and it no longer defends this h7 square, which, you know, of course, if, you know, black does something random, you know, it's going to be checkmate. So, you know, of course, we'd have h6 coming up, knight to knight to f3, you know, rook to e8, just defending that e5 pawn. And because, you know, you definitely don't want to go f6 because, you know, you have a lot of issues with the pin on this particular diagonal here. All right, so we have rook f e1, just you know, trying to reinforce that that attack on that e5 square. So you'd probably see something like knight to d7 and queen to h4. And so you know, as you guys can see, you know, white has a pretty nice solid attack going. You know, black is a little bit behind. So a lot of the issues that black can, you know, have in these positions is the fact that they're underdeveloped compared to white. So, you know, anytime you have a lead in development, you know, you have a better ability to attack your opponent's position, then they can muster up the defenses against it and stuff like that. So, you know, like I said, we had d4 in the position. So we had h6, recognizing that the queen could come to, you know, to h5. And like, I mean, if you just take a look at the position, I mean, you know, from the position that we had a second ago, you know, it's you know, the last piece for white to move is going to be the queen. So it's like you kind of have to expect that there's going to be either a queen f3 or a queen to, you know, the h5 type of situation coming. So like I said, we had h6, knight back to f3. So we have bishop to g4. So we have pawn takes e5. A pretty strong alternative was h3. You know, going into you know, something like possibly bishop takes f3, queen takes f3. You know, e takes d4, which isn't winning a pawn because, you know, of course you can't push. You know, after something like rook a to d1, you know, you can't push the pawn here because, you know, it's just going to be losing a knight, of course. So we probably see something like knight to d7, and you know, the rook would go ahead and capture that rook. And this is a pretty good position for white here. You know, they need to do is swing the rook over, and they have this this d file, you know, taken care of pretty well. And so you know, like I said, we had d takes e5, knight to d7. And so now we have h3 kicking the you know, kicking the queen, kicking the bishop. And so we have queen takes f3. And we have queen takes e5. Now, something that was also a possibility too was, you know, knight takes e5. Or not, excuse me, something that wasn't an option. There was a reason why the queen took. So what I meant to say was an alternative move that might seem like it was legit was knight takes e5. But you would run into queen to g3. You know, which would ask a pretty good question to the queen. And the main problem that you have in this position here is the fact that, you know, you have the pin on this g file. And so, you know, you definitely have to worry about bishop takes and, you know, knight check type situation. So, you know, queen would most likely have to go to e7. And you see rook f to e1. So, you know, you can see that this position is kind of a little testy for black. So, you know, you definitely, queen taking on e5 was definitely much better. And so we see rook f to e1. And we see rook a to e8. And it might kind of seem like, you know, you can take, you know, instead of moving the rook over, you could have just went ahead and took the pawn on b2 with the queen. But then, you know, you'd run into rook a to b1. The queen would most likely, you know, go back to, you know, to e5. The best central square for it to be to be on. And then, you know, you'd see, you know, bishop takes d5. Queen takes d5, and you have rook takes b7. As you can see, you know, white has some weaknesses, the same as black. But I mean, the main problem is the fact that this queen is, you know, stuck in the center, and it's kind of pressed against this knight. So if you can ever try to get like a rook to d1 situation going on, it's gonna look pretty bad for black here. And so with rook a to e8, we saw c3, and so we see knight 5 to f6, but a another thought could have possibly been knight to d2 instead of c3. Just exploiting the the pin that well, not really a pin, but just exploiting the situation here for that. But I mean, you could definitely have something like queen takes e1, rook takes e1, rook takes e1 with check, king to h2, knight to e5. The only problem is when you're playing, when you're playing against certain people, and when you're playing without a queen against the queen, you have to like relentlessly maintain an initiative, because if you ever give, you're going to allow the opposing side to kind of muster up their defenses. And usually, with the queen, you're going to win the game. But, black does have both rooks in this particular case. So they're playing both the rooks against the queen in this particular one here. And so, like I said, we had knight 5 to f6. And so we had a rook a to d1. All right, so we had a queen, knight takes e4. We had rook takes d7. Knight to g5. All right, attacking the queen there. And also placing an attack on this rook on e1. And so we had queen to e3. And so, I'm curious if you guys want to go ahead and stop the video real quick. I'm curious how many of you can actually come up with the move that Hikaru Nakamura actually played in this position. It's something that completely took me by surprise. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not something that I saw at all. I mean, I'm not looking at the position from the black's perspective. So I mean, maybe if I had looked at it, I might have came to me. But if you want to stop the video real quick and just see if you can kind of guess what Hikaru Nakamura played in this position, I'll give y'all a little bit of time to catch up with us. All right, cool. So for those of you that came up with knight to f3, that's this is a really pretty move. Like if you just look at it, you're like, man, okay, that's like, because you're not capturing anything, you're literally just placing the knight on pre, and it's just cute. Like I like it. Like you know what I'm saying? Like because like I said, with the sacrifices and stuff, normally you have a situation where you'll take a pawn, or you'll take a a piece, or there'll be some type of capture that you do. But it's like just to place a piece just in a complete danger zone, just to be just given away completely 100% for free. That's just kind of nice. Like it's just cool looking, man. So Magnus Carlsen goes ahead and he accepts the with g takes f3, and so we see queen queen to g5 check, deflecting the queen away from the protection of the rook, because of course if you leave queen there and move the king, rook is going to come down and cause some havoc on that e3 square. So you're forced to take pretty much queen takes g5. Then you have rook to e1 check, and then so king to g2 here. And so now we're able to win our queen back with h takes g5. All right, so rook takes b7, and so we have a5. So we have a4, g6. All right, so bishop to c4, king to g7, rook to c7, and we have rook to e5. Something that was actually slightly stronger was going to be rook to a1. Trying to tickle this pawn here, and so white only has really two ways. One really sucks, and one is legitimate. I mean, of course, you can try to back bishop up here, but after rook to f rook to b8, you're gonna have to take pawn here, and you're just kind of winning. You can just kind of sidestep the king over, but you're winning some. You're winning a couple of pawns here, and so you definitely in this particular position, you have this pawn that can kind of run down the board. So the most logical way to defend that would be with b3. So you see rook coming back to c1, rook takes c6, and then rook to e8. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to double rooks down here, and take advantage of the fact that white has a really, really horrible king size structure here. And so like I said, we had rook to e5. So we have rook takes c6. All right, so we have rook to b8, like kind of introducing the idea that I mentioned a second ago. All right, so we have rook to c7, All right, so rook takes b2, bishop takes f7, rook to e1, and we have bishop back to c4. And so we have king to h8, rook to c8 check, king to g7. So we have rook back to c7 with check, king to h8. We have rook to c8 check, king back to g7, and we have rook to c7 check. And it's in this position that the players reached a draw by repetition. So they, they had a threefold, consecutive repetition. So, just kind of another possibility that that Black had to play, which was actually, it wasn't winning, but it was definitely like a strong option. It would have been king to f8. And so king to f8, you're not running into any, if you're coming down, if you're coming down this way, with the king, you're running into a situation where you can check here and then you can back up and then this rook is going to be picked up. But if you're going up, you're avoiding that. So, you might see something like bishop to d3, rook to a2, and, just kind of grabbing some pawns here. And, with bishop to g6 and then rook takes a4. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely something. I mean, Black is definitely in a better position here because of, you have this pawn that has the ability to go down the board. So it's going to be kind of hard for White to stop it. But an alternate situation would have been if you would, would play like rook c5. But this wouldn't be as strong because you would have rook b to b1. And, rook b to b1, is going to kind of force a concession from White. And so you're going to have to throw this pawn forward and kind of give it away. And then G would take, G takes f4. Because, the only other alternative, there really isn't any other alternatives. You can try to go, king to g3. But unfortunately, this is just going to be completely mating. After rook to g1 check, king to h2, rook to h1 check, king to g3, and rook b to g1 checkmate. Because, these flight squares are covered. And, of course, you can't go up. And so I think that was what I had. Rook c5. Yeah. Yep. That's what I got, guys. So, all right. That is the round 11 game. And that's Magnus Carlsen versus Hikaru Nakamura for like the 387th time in history. It's kind of like the Anatoly Karpov and Gary Kasparov type of like yearly rivalry that they go through. So, like I said, that is it. That is round 11, and that was a drawn game. And so, if you guys have any other games you want me to try to analyze, let me know. Got my donation to the channel information if you want to throw that in there. Be much appreciated. Go ahead and subscribe and like for me. Leave me some comments and anything you can think of. I changed the board color to brown, so it's got like a true wood look. So hopefully that's that's appealing to some people. I had it requested a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't personally want to do it. So I just kind of kept it, my other color. But, let me know what you guys think either way. I mean, I can always change it back to the other one if y'all prefer that one. But I appreciate you guys stopping by, and I'll see y'all next time. All right.